we're back. It's been a little while and I wanted to come back and continue these verbal diaries because I was missing them and it's been a long time since I've made one. And I really felt the pull to come back and start making these again. Mostly because I want to continue to work on my communication skills, and I think actually making these videos and then reviewing them and watching myself communicate, I think really helps me see where I can improve. And I think there's some study that shows that when you watch yourself and you watch your behaviors and you have some sort of technique or method of observing your actions, it makes you much more likely to improve. So I think that applies to if you're tracking your habits, you're way more likely to implement new habits and stop doing bad habits. And then I think if you're watching like video of yourself, I think that like in say in sports or communication, that really accelerates the learning process because I don't know how, but I think maybe you can just be conscious of what doesn't look good and kind of somewhere your brain, like the next time you come back to that thing, like can, maybe some sort of unconscious process happens where you start to change certain things. But the biggest thing I wanted to talk on in this video is something pretty big that I've kind of been realizing for quite a while, and especially this last little bit. And that is the kind of spiritual path that I've been on these past 5 or 6 years, and kind of the way in which I approached spirituality and what I did wrong, pretty much. And I'm just realizing, kind of putting these pieces together fairly recently. And where I went wrong, I think, in my spiritual path is I started out, probably like many people who get on this path, by being introduced to Eastern philosophy and spiritual traditions. And so a lot of stuff having to do with being in the present moment, the ego being an illusion, this kind of reality and life being an illusion, us fundamentally being one with the universe. Not sure if I already mentioned this, but being in the present moment, and the past and the future being illusory as well. And kind of the idea that there's nothing to do and nothing to strive for, and that like our desires and attachments to outcome are a big source of our suffering. And I get pretty obsessive when something hits me hard and resonates deeply within me, which this did. And dude, I went fucking all in. I went all in following this philosophy. And from that moment on, it was a book by Eckhart Tolle that like really just catapulted me into this whole new world and way of thinking that I'd never come across before. And God, did that resonate within me. And so my life mission from that point on was to like completely kill my ego. I was meditating. In my mind, my thought process was that the most important thing I can now do with my life is to meditate and get to the point where I find enlightenment, because I truly believed that that was the greatest thing I could do with my life. And that was what all humans needed to do in order for us to not extinct ourselves, pretty much. And yeah, as I went down that path, I think the problems with that became more and more clear as the years went on. A lot of things in my life kind of fell apart, and yeah, went through some of the roughest years of my life, because that point of view, especially when it starts to turn into spiritual bypassing, and it's not, and like, man, I just went so hardcore with it. Like I tried to basically not identify with my ego and try to force myself to try to just always be tapped into like an identity beyond myself. It's hard to explain. I was very naive at that time about all this stuff. And, now seeing the damage that did on my life and my self-image, my self-confidence, my ability to connect with other people, where my career life has gone, my relationships, man, it fucked me up. It fucked me up going down that path, because I was someone who was very driven, very ambitious, and then I basically tried to just shove all that down. And wow, my unconscious, my soul, whatever, like the deepest parts of me, they did not like that. And I felt so lost and so confused for so many years. And I'm still recovering from that. But thankfully, I have realized that the ego is not something to get rid of. And I've been reading a lot of Carl Jung, and listening to other people speak on this. And Jung believed that the ego was a fundamental part of the self, which includes our unconscious and many different parts, and the consciousness and the conscious ego. And man, just realizing how like much I abandoned that part of me. My ego, my sense of self, my sense of individuality, like that fucks up your boundaries. It fucks up like your relation to other people and to the world that we live in. It fucks that up so much. And I'm in a process of coming back to myself. And, maybe I had to go through that experience. That was a part of my path of growth, maybe. But it's hard to think about like the havoc that is caused, that caused in my life, believing in that path. And so Jung believed that Eastern philosophies and those Eastern spiritual traditions didn't necessarily do any good for the Western psyche because of the way we are brought up in our culture. That framework doesn't do well with our Western psyche. And my beliefs have also changed in that I believe that having a strong ego and being able to act in the world and fucking have drive and make shit happen is a huge part of birthing your soul into this world and doing your work that you were put here for in this world. You have to have a strong ego. And a lot of people in modern spirituality get caught in that trap that I got caught in, thinking like, oh, you just have to be here now and there's nothing to do and nothing to accomplish. Like it's just about, being in the present moment. And like you hear that so much. And like I think that's not untrue. Like there are times to be present and in the moment and be connected to the now and not be thinking about the past or future. 100%. I think both sides are true, but I also think it is so important to have discipline and work hard. And I believe that each one of us has a calling that we came here with, that is our song that we're supposed to sing. And that requires action, that requires determination, that requires sacrifice, that requires a strong sense of individuality and strength in yourself as a person to take action in this world. I believe that is paramount to doing our soul's work in the world. And so for me, I'm kind of coming back to that and trying to, bring it all back and come back to myself. And just hoping that I haven't lost some of those parts of me that were very driven, and trying to renew my relationship with those parts. And so that has been my journey. And it's brought about some very hard times, and I hope that if anyone went down that path that I did, who sees this, might consider, not disregarding Eastern philosophy, Eastern spiritual traditions, but, balancing the two, like that and consistent, grounded action in the world, which I think is so important for mental health and spiritual growth as well. So that's it for this one. Peace.